This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Mr. Perez, and you're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, brought to you exclusively on Gear Network. Listen in.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 62 of the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
Episode 62.
I need to make sure that that's the right number, because last week I did the same thing where I didn't edit the podcast, or I didn't edit the number on my notes on my phone, and we almost had the same podcast twice in a week. So I'm just going to do a real quick check. Yeah, this is episode 63. This is 63.
You know what?
Try it again. Try it again. No, try it again. Yeah, try it again. Hi, everybody. It's 63.
Episode 63.
Look at that. We just did 2 episodes in one.
That's because we're awesome.
We're something. We're something, that's for sure. Going to start off just real quick in the UFC. UFC 192 took place last weekend, and the fight that everybody wanted to see was Daniel Cormier and Alexander Gustafsson, which was for the light heavyweight championship. And it came down to a split decision. Daniel Cormier won, but I'll tell you what, that entire fight, like I thought there was no doubt in my mind at least, that Daniel Cormier could have lost that fight. I mean, he controlled the fight, dominated Alexander Gustafsson. Usually you can tell who won a fight by who's beat up worse, and Gustafsson was definitely worse for the wear at the end of that fight. You know, so at some point in time, you know, you got to give Daniel Cormier credit where credit's due. And I mean, he is one of the best fighters in the UFC at this point. There's you know, he fought, I believe, Anthony Rumble Johnson for the title, and then now he beat Gustafsson to defend his title. Really, the next guy to fight is John Jones, which, as we talked about last week, may happen in the next couple months. I'm expecting, because they announced an April date in New York City, Madison Square Garden, pending a federal injunction against the state of New York to allow UFC at Madison Square Garden. I think that's where we'll see the fight between John Jones and Daniel Cormier for the UFC light heavyweight championship.
Well, that would be a good fight.
That'll be a great fight. I mean, the first time John Jones dominated, which is not surprising, but maybe with some ring rust, potential ring rust, and the thought process now that Cormier is the champion, so he's going in with the title, so the pressure's off. I mean, right. Yeah, there's still pressure, but it's like any fight as a champion in the UFC. You don't have to dominate. You just have to control the fight enough to prove to the judges that you don't deserve to lose your title in that fight. So, I mean, I think John Jones would defeat him in, a round or two, because John Jones is just devastating. But then again, when the tables are turned, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that'll be a good one, and I think it's time, like we discussed before, for New York State to end this stupid ban on MMA. Oh,
it has to. It just has to stop. I mean, there's so much money that New York State can make. They've like we said before, they've promised a bunch of fights. I think like 4 to 6 fights a year. I think 4 is the number, actually. 4 fights a year in New York. So you got to figure you get probably in two in New York City, 1 in Buffalo, or 2 in Buffalo, maybe 1 in Syracuse. Because the thing about Buffalo too is not only is Buffalo a good place for a UFC pay-per-view, but you have the Toronto market, the Canada market, that will come down and help sell out the arena. So there's no doubt that they could sell out an arena in Buffalo, most likely the First Niagara Center. Well, that's the only place they could fight is the First Niagara Center. But
right.
Excuse me. There would be no problem at all signing that out with not only the rabid New York fan base, but the Canada fan base as well. Because we've seen how UFC does in Canada. It's just the other way around. People go up to Canada to see the UFC, and obviously UFC is very popular in Canada.
Right.
One last thing to point out here. Johnny Hendricks tries to make his usual crazy weight cut before a fight, and he ended up putting himself in the hospital. He had some kidney stones as well as a blockage in his intestines. So Tyron Woodley, his opponent, is now the number one contender at welterweight. Dana White says Johnny Hendricks will now be considered a middleweight. Hendricks says he's going to try a mini weight cut in the next month or two to see if his body can handle going to welterweight. But if not, it's going to be the first time out of a lot of times we're going to see it, because guys being forced to move up weight classes, because a lot of guys will kind of crash diet, and they'll like Hendricks, I think, was 25 to 30 pounds overweight before the fight, so he would have lost 25 to 30 pounds, and then he would have gained a ton of it back.
That's a lot of weight.
Well, yeah, and he'd gain a bunch of it back before the fight.
That's difficult. That's a lot of weight to have to gain back.
Well, here's the deal. They lose the weight, and then the night before the fight, they just load up on carbs.
Yeah, but 20 to 30 pounds is a huge number. I mean, I'm having a hard enough time losing 20 pounds.
But even if you're a world-class athlete, it's got to take a toll on you. And clearly with Hendricks, this is not the first time he struggled to make weight.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there, but I do think that this will become a thing. Like there were some talks that guys like Conor McGregor, once he has his next fight, there may be a weight move up in his future, or guys like John Jones who may move up weight classes just because. I mean, John Jones is a different story, but they wanted to move John Jones up because he was so dominant. But there are guys who are pushing the limits of what's healthy and what's not. So I certainly think that, especially with UFC banning the IVs, the IV treatments that a lot of fighters use.
Right.
Because the USDA drug testing policies, that's not allowed. So it's not allowed within a specific time of the fight, I believe. But I think a lot will change. UFC will be made a lot healthier. Fighters will be a lot healthier. It's going to take time. But I feel like this is a step in the right direction, so we'll certainly see where it goes from here. But UFC trying to be healthy, trying to be safe, and you can't blame them at all.
No, you can't blame them about that. You're a very popular sport right now, and you want to make sure that the people representing you on TV are, healthy. If you look at something like WWE back in the 80s when they had all those steroid issues, you don't want that to be something that could cloud your legacy.
Well, not just that either, but you also want to provide a safe environment for your fighters.
Yeah, I guess so. That might be a good idea.
I think I keep losing you over here. It just keeps getting very silent. Either way, I'm going to move to basketball really quick. Some tough news for the Charlotte Hornets. They lose Michael Kidd-Gilchrist for the season. He had a tough fall in a game a couple weeks ago, or a week or so ago, and or it was a week ago. Yeah, sorry. He had a tough fall in a game. I believe it was against the Magic in preseason. Thought he separated his shoulder. Come to find out, he not only separated his shoulder, but he also tore his labrum. He had surgery. He'll be out 6 months. So a tough break for the Hornets, who are looking to make another step towards the playoffs this year. It's going to be a little more difficult without Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. But, sports, there's adversity in sports. That's how sports work. It's never going to be like how you play on the Xbox or the PS4, where you can turn injuries off. You can just turn injuries off and everything's fine.
Right, exactly. And as a basketball player, I mean, you need those shoulders. That's you
tear anything in your shoulder, it's garbage. You're done. Just sit down.
Right. Exactly. So that is a tough loss for them, but that's a tough injury. Hopefully he'll be able to come back okay. Was it on his shooting arm or his non-shooting arm?
I think it was his shooting arm.
Yeah, that's tough.
Either way, I mean, he can't play. If it was his non-shooting, he still wouldn't be able to play.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, if it was his non-shooting arm, you're not going to get as much of a workout during a game. You know what I'm saying? As the shooting arm will. So, there'll be a lot of icing in his future after a game if it's his shooting arm. Those guys ice up anyway, but They'll be
Oh yeah,
bored
absolutely, absolutely. I'm looking up something right here. I want to double check. Should have looked this up before the podcast, but it's something we're going to talk about here in a second. I want to move over to Major League Baseball. That's why I'm looking this stat up right now. I'll tell you all in a second why I'm looking it up. But first off, Washington National pitcher Max Scherzer throws another no-hitter, which is just he is
incredible.
Seriously, he's incredible. I mean, his win-loss total this year was not good, but he is as good as they come, and he's worth all the money that they pay him. Long story short, the best way to put it, you can tell why. Well, we'll talk about that in just a second. Actually, we'll mention it right now because we're on the topic of the Nationals. The Nationals fired head coach Matt Williams, which is not surprising due to his lack of apparent ability to coach. He has struggled, it appears, with managing a baseball team with a lot of egos, because that team has a lot of egos, a lot of important players. But we'll see what ends up happening with the Nationals. But you have to figure with guys like Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Bryce Harper, Jason Worth, a strong infield. I'm just trying to think of names off the top of my head. Just a strong team overall. I mean, they had a bad year, but there's going to be a lot of people lining up for that job.
And they had a surprisingly bad year. I mean, they have a really good squad with a ton of talent.
They have the National League MVP.
Right. They just couldn't seem to get it together. But, I mean, you could tell the manager didn't have control of that ball club. I mean, when they had to fight last week, and he came out and said he didn't even know what happened. Like, what are you doing? How are you not managing your team? You're the manager.
All right, so I have the statistic here that I wanted. I just need to figure out. I need to stop doing this. I'm so bad at this sometimes. I'll get in front of a computer while I'm talking on the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I want to look at more stuff and talk more about more things. Boston Red Sox manager John Farrell, who underwent chemotherapy for cancer treatment this season and was replaced by Torey Lovullo. John Farrell will be back next season, and Torey Lovullo signed a 2-year extension to be the bench coach behind Farrell. He said that he doesn't want to leave John Farrell just yet, but you have to think with the way that the Boston Red Sox played, either he'll be the guy that keeps the seat hot for John Farrell, in terms of if Farrell doesn't perform, he'll get the axe, and Lovullo will be the guy. But he should be a major league manager here sometime soon. So we will see how that one works out. Moving on to the New York Yankees, pitcher CC Sabathia left the team voluntarily and went to an alcohol rehab facility. Now, it appears from reports that we've gathered on the internet that CC Sabathia was drunk in the locker room, and at some point in time had to be helped out of the locker room because he was so drunk. And then obviously we saw earlier this year where he had issues in Toronto, where he almost got in a fight with someone on the street. Like, you can tell that the issues are there. Hopefully he gets the help that he needs. I mean, at this point in time, it's one of those things where, teams are teams. You want a guy to, on a human level, you want someone to get healthy. You want someone to be better. You want someone to be okay. And clearly, if he's stepping up and saying, hey, I need help, that's important enough. I mean, that's huge. That is absolutely huge for a guy to say, you know what, I'm leaving my team in the playoffs. I have a problem. If I don't fix it now, I don't know if it's going to get fixed. Let's go. Let's do this.
No, that is huge. I mean, to voluntarily recognize that you have a problem and seek to get treatment for it, that shows that his mind is heading in a positive direction, and hopefully he'll be able to get clean. And then, it also makes you wonder, the last couple of seasons, he's struggled. It makes you wonder if his struggles had to do with his alcoholism.
I would think that his struggles had a lot to do with him losing his fastball. And I don't know if it's because of his weight loss or his knees. I know his knees were bad, and then he lost weight, and then he lost his fastball. And he had made mention about that, about how he lost so much weight and lost his edge in his fastball. But I would think a lot of struggles this season probably were with the alcoholism. It's a terrible disease. Hopefully he can, like I said, he can get the proper help, and he can come back and be effective for his team.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see, especially, hopefully he'll be able to clean up and then come back and be dominant like he was. You'd like to see those type of stories when someone corrects an issue and then comes back and is good again,
I don't think he'll ever be dominant again, but he can probably be effective.
Yeah, effective. I'll take effective at this point. I'm a Yankees fan.
Moving over to the Miami Marlins now, they relieve interim manager Dan Jennings of his duties. He finished 55-69 in his first go-around as a Major League manager. If you remember correctly, he was the GM of the franchise, and then they fired Mike Redmond, and the GM said, cool, I'm going to take over and be the manager. Well, clearly it didn't work out so well for him, and they did offer him a spot back in the front office, but we'll see what... We'll see how that one works out sometime soon. I don't know if he's going to go back. I know they're trying to change things there. Actually, you know what? I don't even know what they're doing because, to be honest,
I don't think they know what they're doing.
Florida does so many different things every year that they just don't know.
Right. That's true. They need to do something. They almost need like a whole overhaul.
They need a new owner. I think that's the problem. Their ownership is just idiotic.
That's true. Yeah, I can go along with that.
I mean, they win the World Series, they trade everybody away. They get more guys, they win the World Series again, they trade everybody away. Like at this point, I'm shocked they haven't traded Giancarlo Stanton yet.
You never know. That might be in the works with them.
But hey, speaking of the Marlins, they do a good thing this week. They re-sign future Hall of Famer Ichiro Suzuki to a 1-year deal. Now, the reason that's such a big deal, first off, another year of Ichiro is always a good year. But Ichiro Suzuki has 2,935 career hits, 65 away from 3,000. That's a big deal. An even bigger deal, Ichiro Suzuki has 4,213 career hits over all foreign and Major League Baseball. Over in China, he had amassed 12,078 hits, and he's 43 away from tying, 44 away from passing Pete Rose. Now, I understand there's going to kind of be an asterisk against next to his name because he didn't play all of his career in Major League Baseball, but I am confident enough to say that if Ichiro Suzuki had played his first 9 years of his career in Major League Baseball, or even if he came over when he was 21 or 22, so we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. If he played an extra 4 or 5 years here, I see no doubt. Well, maybe if it was only 4 or 5, that's probably for him an extra 1,000 hits. So it would have been very close. I mean, it would be something where I could see Ichiro Suzuki possibly being the greatest hitter in Major League Baseball history, passing Pete Rose for all-time hits, all that stuff. But no doubt if Ichiro started his career here, he would have set the record. But he came over when he was 27. He's amassed 15 years, 2,935 hits. One of the greatest hitters I think we'll ever see in the game. And I see no reason why when he retires, if he passes Pete Rose's record, he'll be recognized as the all-time hit king. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think there'll be any doubt about it. He's an incredible hitter. He came over and he didn't slow down. It wasn't like there was some type of adjustment period. And I agree with you. If he had played more than he did, he absolutely would be probably considered one of the greatest in the major league.
I'm just always excited for Ichiro. I know, like one of the last days of the season, he actually pitched for the first time in his major league career. He recorded an inning's worth of work. He finishes with a 9 ERA. He finished the game too. 2 hits, 1 earned run. Faced 5 batters. But you know what? That's all in good. I'm sure that's something he wanted to do, which is why he offered to do it, or which is why he ended up doing it. But I'm excited. I mean, I wish that Ichiro was in a Seattle uniform when he got hit 3,000, because it's like Wade Boggs getting his 3,000th hit with the Devil Rays. Then, it's just weird. It's like, couldn't you have done it in a Red Sox or a Yankee uniform? I mean, I understand you're at the end of your career, people have moved on, but like, it just is going to feel so weird in 10, 15 years when, less than that, when Ichiro goes to the Hall of Fame. And, you see highlights of him getting hit 3,000 or hit 4,257 with, in a Miami uniform. It's going to be awkward for sure.
Yeah, that will be weird.
Also,
but at least you get the chance to do it.
Well, yeah, the thing I remember from last year, that's why I started slowing down as I was talking. I remember when he got his 3,000th career professional hit, Major League Baseball recognized it. The teams recognized it. It was a big deal. So I feel like Major League Baseball needs a hero in the hit category, and I think Ichiro Suzuki will be that guy where they'll put him. I don't know if they'll put him ahead of Pete Rose, but they'll say, look at this guy. If he had played his entire career in Major League Baseball, would have crushed Pete Rose's record for most hits in a career. No doubt about it. He's a pure hitter. He's, like I said, one of the greatest hitters we'll ever see. He's a great bad ball hitter, can hit to all parts of the field. I mean, in his prime, there was not a pitch you couldn't throw to Ichiro that he couldn't hit. Or there wasn't a pitch you could throw that he couldn't hit, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I just said that, but I feel like it didn't come out right. So if this is the last we see of Ichiro Suzuki, it'll be sad. But at 42 years old, if he goes out and, I mean, last year he only batted .229, he had 91 hits in 153 games. So it's going to be difficult for him to get to 3,000. But I feel like he'll get a very, very good shot to get there.
Yeah, I think he'll have a good shot to get there also, and I'd like to see him do it.
Also, something that just came across the line a little while ago, Lloyd McClendon will not manage the Seattle Mariners in 2016. Sources tell Ryan Divish of Seattle Times that Lloyd McClendon will be dismissed. He owed $1 million in 2016, the final year of his contract with Seattle. They just brought in Jerry DiPoto from the Boston Red Sox, who was the ex-Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim GM, who was fired last year. During last season, he ended up going to the Red Sox and worked as an assistant to the GM, whatever. But Tim Bogar is expected to be a name that will be popular in the race for the new manager position in Seattle. Tim Bogar worked with DiPoto in the Anaheim front office, and apparently, according to this article on MLBTradeRumors.com, is said to embrace analytics, which is something DiPoto is, quote, known to desire in a manager. So we will see how that one turns out, but I'm assuming if he's the favorite, he'll probably get the gig.
Right.
Now moving on to, I don't know why I was yelling to the microphone like an asshole like that.
That was loud.
I get excited. I get very excited. And you know why I'm excited, Lewis?
Why are you excited, Ryan?
We're going to talk Major League Baseball playoffs.
Yes.
On Thursday.
I think you should bring back the We're Talking Baseball song.
Well, I would have to actually edit the podcast, and I don't want to do that, I mean, maybe.
All right, never mind.
Sorry, I'm news is coming across the wire as we go.
As we speak, breaking news.
Oh, it's just during the day. Peter Budaj is on waivers in Los Angeles today. It's a free goaltender. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Why? But he might end up a Buffalo Sabre. But I'll mention that in a little bit. You can wait on that one, I'm sure. The Houston Astros defeat the New York Yankees, who were kind of lifeless in that.
They were, man. It was ridiculous.
I mean, they struggled bad in September, but I didn't expect I didn't expect them to completely just fall flat. I mean, they had a couple shots against Dallas Keuchel, but, Houston came out with a vengeance in that game and just they were ready to go, and the Yankees the bats were flat. Pitching was okay, but, when the bats are flat, your pitching has to be flawless, and it was not. I mean,
right.
you look at the line that Masahiro Tanaka had, and it wasn't bad, but he had 4 hits in 5 innings, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks. It's tough, but I thought Houston was I picked Houston to beat the Yankees. I know you and John naturally picked the Yankees to win because you guys are Yankees fans, which I expect. I don't, it's not a shot at you guys. I expect you to be confident in your team. But, the thing they kept talking about Houston, and I'm going to echo it, right here. You look at Houston as a team of the future, but they're actually a team of the present and the future because they have a lot of kids that are still developing, like Carlos Correa. He's going to be better than he is now. Their rotation is going to be better than it is now. There are guys in the minors who are good, who aren't ready to come up yet, but in 2 or 3 years, they may be in the rotation or in the starting lineup. That makes them a very tough team down the road. So it's interesting to see how they're doing well now, but how they'll be how well they'll be in the future as well. So it's kind of scary, I guess is what I'm trying to get at as I keep repeating myself. It's very scary to see the Astros be good now, knowing that 5 years down the road, they're also going to be better.
Right. And it's good to see because for so long, they were just so bad. And so,
they kind of went the tanking route, where they purposely fielded bad teams because in baseball, if you're the worst team in baseball, you get picked. So they lost 100 games, 100+ games for 3 straight years. They loaded up on talent, made smart moves in free agency, hired the right manager, have the right GM, have a really good farm director, all that stuff. I mean, it all adds up after a while. It takes some time, but once you get the ball rolling, it really is, it's just, momentum at this point.
Right.
I couldn't find the word there, so I just kept stumbling on myself. Speaking of momentum, moving over to the NL wild card, the Chicago Cubs shut down the Pittsburgh Pirates as expected. I mean, on my end, Jake Arrieta, National League Cy Young Award winner, no doubt about it. He shut down the Pirates for most of the game. There were a few shots where the Pirates had a chance to score, like there was a bases loaded situation with 1 out, and ball off the bat was 109 miles an hour, which I believe they said in the regular season, the batting average on balls hit over 100 or at 109 miles an hour was like 720. Right. And he hit directly into a bases loaded double play. So at some, you have to be good, but you also have to be lucky. And I feel in that situation, luck really kicked in. And for the Chicago Cubs, when they had an error and then, bases were loaded, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is the Cubs, what's going to happen? And then he gets that double play, and I'm like, okay, you've got my attention. Maybe there's some momentum on their side. Maybe there's some of that, the quote-unquote luck factor, if you want to call it that.
Right.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that one works out. But, man, I'm so high on the Cubs. Like, if you guys are able to read my article over at BLTDsports.com, Contender or Pretender, Major League Baseball Playoff Edition, I wrote 2,692 words, I believe it was, on all 10 teams, discussing who was a contender, who was a pretender, and I'm super high on the Cubs. Now, I mean, if they don't win the World Series, it's whatever. But if they win the World Series, I feel like I'm like an oracle or something, because you look at that team. They've got a good mixture of young talent and experienced talent. They've got a great manager. They're like the Astros. They have a lot of talent in the pipeline, but they also have a lot of good talent here now. And I just look at the team, and you have Jake Arrieta, who started the wild card game, who destroyed the Pirates in the wild card game, and then you roll over to Game 1 against the Cardinals, which I believe takes place. Yes, it takes place this evening on Friday night against the Cardinals. John Lester versus John Lackey, which is a Boston Red Sox special for you.
Yeah, right.
the crazy thing is with that deep rotation is that you get Arrieta, then you get Lester. Arrieta's great now. Lester's a postseason rock. I mean, the last time he was in the postseason, he went 4-1 with the Boston Red Sox in the postseason en route to a World Series championship in 2013. So that's a lot of the reason why he is where he is. It's just, I like I said, I'm just super high on the on the Chicago Cubs this year. And before I get too lost in that, I want to move over now to the ALDS. Yesterday, both game ones happened on Thursday, October 8th. The Rangers take game one against the Blue Jays 5-3. David Price did not have a great outing. The Rangers lost Adrian Bell.
David Price is 0-6 in the postseason.
He's not very good in the ALDS in the postseason. But the one thing I want to point out before we get too far along, Jose Bautista left with a hamstring issue. I don't know if it was a strain, if it was a pull, but he's back in the lineup today. They said he'll be fine. Josh Donaldson, arguably AL MVP, was kneed in the head. He came out of the game with concussion-like symptoms, but they cleared him. They said he's okay. He'll be back in the lineup today. And the Texas Rangers lose Adrian Beltre for a couple days. Now, I say a couple days, but it's kind of the schedule's kind of a little weird because he had a cortisone injection, I believe it was in his back, and a numbing agent also. So it takes 24 to 48 hours to kick in, and then I believe they're going to try to see what he can do after that. So he's certainly out for Game 2, which takes place on Friday. Actually, as of recording time, it takes place in about 20 minutes. But if the Rangers are without Adrian Beltre, that's big loss for them.
That's a big loss for them. I agree with you. And as good as David Price is in the postseason, in the preseason, but in the regular season, let me get that right. It's incredible how he just collapses in the postseason. It makes no sense to me. Someone of that type of talent, once even more pressure is on, just collapses. So who do you got in that series?
I have Toronto. Like, no doubt. Yeah. I have Toronto because I don't think Texas is for real enough, I guess is the way to put it. I mean, Texas had a hell of a run, but I'm just not buying the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, I believe Toronto will win that series also.
Well, we'll see in Game 2, because one thing I wanted to point out here, Jeff Passan of Yahoo Sports points out, of the 39 division series in which the teams have won Game 1, the home team has recovered to win the series only 11 times. So we have let's see here. Let me get back to my application so I can get the right statistics for you. Right now in the ALDS, both teams currently are home teams currently lost the road teams. And in the NLDS, Game 1 takes place on Friday night, so we'll know that in just a second. But we'll see what happens. I mean, the Astros beat the Royals. The Astros looked very good against the Royals last night. They won 5-2. Like I said, with Houston, it's all rolling downhill. Like, the momentum is just keep going and keep going. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, let me take that back. I would be surprised if Kansas City lost. But with the momentum that Houston has, if they can keep rolling downhill, I mean, I wouldn't be totally shocked.
Hey, man, I'm sticking with the Houston Astros winning the World Series.
You did say that a while back. I mean, they're at this point they're a game closer. They're one game closer. Game 2 of the ALDS, Hamels and Stroman. I believe the Blue Jays they have to win, but I think that they will win, no doubt about it. Marcus Stroman has been a rock since he came back from knee surgery during the season. It'll be interesting to see how the Blue Jays respond today, but I don't think Cole Hamels is a great pitcher, but I think the Blue Jays will take that one. Astros and Royals, it's Scott Kazmir versus Johnny Cueto. I want to say the Astros are going to take that one. I know Cueto hasn't been the best since coming over from Cincinnati at the deadline. So I think that the Houston Astros will put the pressure on Kansas City going back to Houston. I mean, that's what I want to see at this point. Game 1 of the NLDS, Cubs-Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cubs. And NLDS Game 1, I really want to say the Mets, but I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to say the Mets. Just because I wrote in the article, I'm doubling down on it. Clayton Kershaw is not good in the postseason. He hasn't been good in the postseason. But here's the thing. The Dodgers hitting is not good either. Not great. So if the hitting doesn't show up and the pitching's not great or not, spectacular, what are you doing? You're not giving yourself much chance to win. So I think the Mets take Game 1 there.
The Mets have looked good the second half of the season, and I don't really see them. I don't really see that ending. I happen to like the Dodgers as a team. I always have. So I'd like to see the Dodgers pull it off, but I don't know. I got some questions about them. They have some holes that the Mets may be able to take advantage of and pull that series off.
Now I want to move over to the National Hockey League really quick. San Jose Sharks forward Rafi Torres suspended 41 games for an illegal check to the head and interference. He's been suspended a bunch of times before. Clearly this was targeting a player, a vulnerable player in a vulnerable spot. He deserves the suspension he got. He took it, and he's not going to appeal it. But the National Hockey League is not joking around when it comes to illegal checks, especially when they're to the head. And a guy like Rafi Torres, I said, has a bad reputation, and rightfully so. He's not a very nice hockey player.
Did you say 41 games?
4-1, half the season.
That's a lot of games. Holy cow!
Like I said, man, they're not screwing around anymore.
Good. Enjoy that bench.
I don't think it. If player X hits a guy in the head, it's not going to be 41 games, but it's something again where they're going to continue to push it and say, look, at the more this happens, the harder we're going to come down on it.
Right.
Montreal forward Zach Cassian suspended indefinitely. He was in a truck accident where I believe it was his truck. Someone else was driving it. It was 6 a.m. You can draw your conclusions there. He also suffered a broken left foot and nose in the accident. Now he was suspended indefinitely because he was put into stage 2 of the NHL's rehab program. So clearly you would assume that there were drugs involved because you don't just get put into the rehab. You don't get moved up to stage 2 just because.
Right.
So, I mean, hopefully, as an ex-Buffalo Sabre, I mean, he's been a piece of crap on the ice, but hopefully as a person, like we said with CC Sabathia, hopefully he gets the help he needs and gets right, because you don't want to see anybody struggle with substance abuse or anything like that, for sure.
Right.
Last thing before we move over to the National Football League, the Buffalo Sabres make their season debut on Thursday night, and while the Buffalo Sabres lost their home opener, 3-1 to the Ottawa Senators, which if you want to check out my recap on BLTDsports.com, we've got a new way we're doing things this year. Less of a standard recap, more of kind of a loose recap. It felt really good to write it last night. And we're doing a lot of fun things with that. But Jack Eichel scores his first National Hockey League goal, and it was a beauty. He goes top shelf over Craig Anderson's right shoulder, and he rings all the bars. He hit the top bar, side bar, goes to the ice. I know I'm using the wrong terminology. I just get, my brain's turned to liquid when I see Jack Eichel score that goal. Like I lost my marbles, man. Like that's the next 10. That's the next 10 to 15 years.
Well, hopefully you'll score more than just one goal in the next 10 to 15 years.
Oh, absolutely. I'm saying that's what we're going to see for the next 10 to 15 years is beautiful goals from Jack Eichel.
Yeah, he's going to be really good.
Also, Robin Lehner, I should say, out indefinitely with a foot injury. It sounds like he sprained his foot or his ankle. Reports were that he got his skate stuck in a rut and his foot or ankle gave out. We don't know yet, but It's not good. Right now, Chad Johnson, backup goaltender, is going to take the reins, but it looks like, as I mentioned earlier with Peter Budaj being on waivers, the Buffalo Sabres don't have a National Hockey League ready goaltender in Rochester. They have Nathan Lewin. They have Andrei Makarov, but neither of those guys are ready for backup duty, and it doesn't help them to be in Buffalo getting a game here, a game there. So they'll probably stay in Rochester. I know Nathan Lewin is your opening night starter in Rochester, coming off of a concussion last season, where he struggled most of the season with PCS, post-concussion syndrome, I should say. Between him and Makarov, Rochester should be good in goal, and then Linus Ullmark is going to be back in probably November. He's coming off of double hip surgery, but he won't be cleared to play till probably November. So I do expect the Buffalo Sabres to pick up a guy like Peter Budaj off waivers, most likely just because he's free. We'll also see if the Buffalo Sabres maybe make a trade. I know there's Ben Scrivens. Edmonton waived Ben Scrivens. He's in the AHL right now. You can probably get him for cheap. There's Jonas Hiller in Calgary who could probably be gotten for the right price, but not good to lose your opening night starter in goal 27 or almost 28 minutes into the game. Not good at all. But we'll like I said, we'll see what happens and we'll go from there. But expect obviously more Sabres updates as time goes on, for sure.
Expect nothing less.
Now moving over to the National Football League. News really quick. A new MRI showed new tears for LaShawn McCoy. A 3 to 4 week recovery should do the trick, and he should be 100%. But like I said, out 3 to 4 weeks, a little longer. But if he's good, that'll be good for him and for the Buffalo Bills. Head coach Joe Philbin and defensive coordinator fired by the Miami Dolphins. I think Dan Campbell is the interim head coach. Another update here from Sabres Update as I'm sitting in front of Twitter. Friend of the podcast, Joe Yerdon of NHL.com, at Joe Yerdon on Twitter, tweets out, Robin Leonard does not have a locker in the dressing room. That's not a good sign because usually if it's a long-term injury, they give the stall to someone else. So clearly Buffalo's expecting Robin Leonard to be out an extended period of time. As I mentioned, we'll know more. As we know more, we'll let you know. BLTD, at BLTD Sports, at Wolf BLTD on Twitter. Also, another thing that just was announced. Twitter is Hockey Central today. Remember a couple months ago, Lewis, the Kings and Mike Richards had a falling out where Mike Richards was popped with some prescription drugs, and they kicked him. They cut his contract because the thing is they signed Richards to a bad deal. Richards was not a great player. They signed him to a deal that paid him for the player he was, not the player he's going to be.
Right.
So they wanted to get out of it, so they voided the contract. Well, apparently today, just a minute ago, it was announced by reports, and it was tweeted by, let me get the Twitter handle right here, at R Westhead, Rick Westhead on Twitter, says LA Kings and Mike Richards have reached a settlement over his contract being voided. It will likely be announced today. It's expected that some cap hit will fall back onto the Kings. So it's the Kings aren't going to get out of it for free, which is what they tried to do, and I'm glad the NHLPA stood up for their guy and got him paid, and hopefully that the Kings get something back out of it in terms of a cap hit, because it's garbage. I mean, it's total garbage.
Yes, it is.
Back to the National Football League now. There's a controversy on Monday Night Football. Seattle swatted the ball out of the end zone on a late fumble for a touchback, which now you know the rules. I mean, you probably didn't know the rules then. I didn't even know the rules then. But if you swat the ball out of the end zone purposely, it is a touch. It's a touchback, but it's a penalty. And the team that fumbled the ball gets the ball back at the 1 yard line with a fresh set of downs.
Right.
It's a ruling call. It can't be reviewed. Maybe in the future it will be something that can be reviewed, but the referee on the goal line, or on the back judge at the back of the end zone, did not feel that it was blatant. So he did not call it, and Seattle won. But more controversy on Monday Night Football for the Seattle Seahawks. But they got the victory, so I don't think that they're too mad about it. Moving on to an interesting stat here for you, Lewis, to chew on. Heading into week 5.
I didn't know that rule either. And
no one knew the rule.
Me and you follow sports really, really well, and we didn't know that rule. So what are the chances that just, a lot of the players know that rule?
The National Football League seems to have kind of, I guess, like the National Football League's rule book is like, whose line is it anyway? The rules are made up and the points don't matter type of deal,
Right.
But I'm sure, as time goes on, we will learn more about the National Football League, which, hooray us, that horrible place it is. Heading into week 5, 8 of 32 teams. You heard me right, 8 of 32. A quarter of the teams in the National Football League have winning records. Talk about parity.
Yeah, but some of the teams are dealing with really bad injuries. Like if you look at Dallas, they're 2-2. You don't have those injuries, they're not 2-2. They're 3-1.
That's the point. That's the thing to point out, though, is that it's not a bad thing that 8 of 32 have a winning record. It just shows you that there's a lot of teams right now that haven't separated themselves from the pack. And
right.
I mean, week 10, I'm sure it'll be different. And as we get further and further on in the season, it'll be different. And the teams that are 2-2 now, 2-2 now, they will separate themselves. Or the teams that are 1-3 will separate themselves. The 0-4 team, the Detroit Lions, I don't think that they're going anywhere, so we won't have to worry about them. So a lot of 2-2, a lot of 1-3 teams. We'll see where that goes from there. But it's a fun stat to point out that when a quarter of the league is not winning. Doesn't have a winning record, I should say. That's always fun to look at.
Right.
More bad news for the Buffalo Bills. They signed running back Daniel Boom Herron, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts from Ohio State, if you're a college fan. Carlos Williams, questionable with a concussion, has not practiced the last 2 days. It looks like he is going to be out on Sunday against the Titans. It looks like also Boobie Dixon is still being troubled by a calf injury. And you know what? Here's the thing, too. There have been a lot of calf injuries with the Buffalo Bills. I know that there was an issue, the calf with Sammy Watkins, the calf with Boobie Dixon. LaShawn McCoy has a hamstring. At some point in time, you have to wonder if it's not the player, but if it's the training staff, it's the conditioning staff, because this has been a problem before with the Buffalo Bills, and the one thing that remains the same is the conditioning staff, is the training staff.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that's not the case in this situation where they didn't do a good enough job of training or conditioning the players, so they're more susceptible to hamstring injuries or calf injuries. And obviously in football, about as well as I do, Lewis, a hamstring injury or a calf injury in season is a death wish. It's a death sentence, not a death wish. It's, that thing will suck you dry of your explosiveness, of your burst, of some of your speed for a very long time.
That's true. That's very true.
Boobie Dixon had the calf injury in the off season, in the preseason,
right.
And said on last Monday, a couple days ago, it was the first time he started feeling right since the calf injury. So it's been a little while, almost 2 months for him, a month and a half for him, almost 2 months, where he had the calf injury, and he still wasn't feeling. He was just feeling 100%.
Yeah, that's really too bad. I mean, it's a shame when you start feeling good and then you get re-injured. But I don't know. I mean, the Bills, they got to, they actually have a new coach, Rex Ryan. So you would think maybe that his conditioning regimen for his team is different than the old coaches. But, maybe not. It just makes you think what they're doing. It does. It makes you think what they're doing to continually get all these injuries like that. I mean,
just nagging
injuries. Hamstring. They're just nagging muscle injuries.
I'm really mad.
Maybe they need to stretch out more.
No, I think it's got to be something with the Something's just not going right. I can't find the poop emoji. I'm getting really mad about it. You know the smiley poop?
The what?
Smiley poop emoji? I can't find it on my phone. There we go.
Sorry.
I found it. Sorry, I'm talking to my lovely girlfriend about the Buffalo Sabres goaltending pipeline and how bad it is. Because, the Buffalo Sabres have depth everywhere else but goaltending, and that's been a problem. But that's why they acquired Robin Lehner, and he goes down, and there's not really anything else there. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Like I said, going back to hockey really quick, if the Buffalo Sabres go out and acquire a guy like Jonas Hiller, I expect Lehner to be out a long time. But if they go out and pick a guy up like Peter Budaj and say, we're expecting Lehner to be back relatively early or relatively soon, then, the writing's on the wall there. But then again, they could say, we picked this guy up just because he was free, we're working on another guy or something. We'll find out. But, they have 24 hours until the next game, so I'm sure Tim Murray will figure something out.
Hopefully.
Back to football now, though, because we're jumping all over the place. Expansion talks were hot as hell this week because of an owners' meeting. We get word across the board that there could be a vote as early as January on relocation. The NFL expects the Rams, Chargers, and Raiders to apply for relocation. Also, real quick, rumors are going across the board that Raiders owner Mark Davis reportedly is ready to sell a part of his team to facilitate a Los Angeles move. That shocked me because I thought that the Davis family would always completely own the Raiders, but you know what? Maybe getting some fresh blood in that front office obviously, Davis would still control the majority of the ownership, but it would be a thing where you bring a guy in who can help you get the franchise in the right direction in terms of a new location, because it's looking more and more like the Raiders are the popular choice to move to Los Angeles, but they need to find a way to make it happen. And clearly they haven't. I mean, the Rams have Inglewood with the land, and the Chargers are working on something too. But the Raiders have nothing. They just have a dream. That's all.
That would be really surprising if he sells a part of the ownership. That's, that'd be shocking.
I would be shocked, yeah. Moving over now to our pick'em, week 4 of the 2016 Gear Network pick'em. We all went 10-5. We all had the same picks. So John and I are 39-24. Lewis, who are 36-27. Last night, Thursday night football. Lewis and John, you guys picked Houston. I picked the Colts because I apparently hate myself, but it worked out well, which is nice. Yeah, because, honestly, like before the game, I didn't write down our picks because I had gotten sidetracked with so many other projects. So I'd thought to myself, because I didn't even look at your guys' picks either. I was just like, oh, we probably all have Indianapolis. So that was an easy one for us. Because with the way the way Houston has played lately, it's not been great. But I can see why you guys went against the Colts because of Matt Hasselbeck. Because Matt Hasselbeck was in the hospital 2 days this week with a bacterial infection. They said he couldn't talk in meetings. Andrew Luck was doing the talking for him. So he was in bad shape. Even when he was playing the game, he was having IVs even that afternoon before the game. So I can see why you guys went against the Colts. But honestly, like I said, I didn't write down the picks, and I'm shooting you with the truth here too. I didn't write down the picks, and then I thought to myself, I went, that was easy. We all picked the Colts, and I looked at my phone and saw you guys picked Houston, and I went, what? Huh? I was confused there, which is why I'm glad we got to talk about it, because I was.
Yeah, but you know what? Houston, when they brought in Hoyer, they actually played pretty well. And they were driving to that last 2 minutes. And, if Hoyer had got hit and thrown that pick, they might have been able to tie that game up, and then who knows what happens in in overtime. So it actually wasn't a bad game for, having a couple of backup QBs in, and it wasn't a horrible game.
I'm wondering when the other shoe's going to fall with the Texans because, they're not a terrible team, but they're not playing very well. And a lot of people think that, Christian Hackenberg is the guy that Houston wants at quarterback, current Penn State quarterback, which makes sense because he's a Bill O'Brien guy. He was decently successful under Bill O'Brien. So we will see. We'll see how that one works out. I mean, that's a while away. It's only week 5 at this point. But like I said, you guys had Houston. I had Indianapolis. Moving on to the next one, John and I have Seattle. Lewis, you have Cincinnati. Now I was going to ask you, but I don't think I need to. It's easy. Cincinnati's 4-0. They're at home. Seattle's traveling cross country. So it's going to be a very tough go for the Seahawks for sure.
Yes.
Now, in terms of picking the Seahawks, I just feel like the offense hasn't clicked yet, which usually the offense for them starts very slow. But I think the defense has come around, especially since Cam Chancellor has returned, and rightfully so. I mean, he's one of the best players in that defense. I think the offense can do enough to beat Cincinnati. I mean, if Cincinnati wants to prove to us that they're for real, beat Seattle and go 5-0. Like, if you beat Seattle, go 5-0, you guys, you're for real. I mean, they might even be for real now. Seattle, like I said before, Seattle still is the cream of the crop in the NFC until further notice. Until someone takes them out in the NFC, they're the cream of the crop. So if you want a measuring stick as to see how good a football team is, put yourself against Seattle.
No, I agree with you. And it'll be interesting to see how they play. I just don't think, like you said, cross country. Since he's playing not only cross country, but a 1:00 game.
What,
right. So I think Cincy's going to pull it out. That's my belief.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. Hey, real quick, something that just came across the line. The AHL and the PHPA announced a new collective bargaining agreement through August 2019. That's awesome news. So the AHL is not going anywhere. Wonderfully. And that was Dyron Mahaban of the New York Times, Canadian Press, MLB.com, Sports Exchange, and Vice. That's what his Twitter bio says. At DCMAHIBAN with the Twitter news on the AHL. Sorry. Moving on now to another game that John and I have that you have, Lewis. John and I have New Orleans. You have the Eagles. Please tell me why.
You guys have y'all have the Saints?
We have Nolans, and you have the Eagles.
Trying to remember why I went against the Saints. I'm trying to remember why I made that particular pick. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me think about it. Whoa, holy cow. Hold on a second, buddy.
Okay.
I'm on the thruway. I'm on the thruway driving to work.
Talk us through
I'm working in Buffalo today, and a semi truck just had a tire completely shredded. So I had to swerve through a minefield of rubber. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
All right, I chose the Eagles because I feel like the Eagles have been underachieving this year, and I feel like there's got to be one point where they have a breakout game. And frankly, the Saints, they beat Dallas last week in overtime. The quarterback missed that tackle. They ran for it. But truthfully, the Saints didn't look all that great in that game. And I think the defense of the Eagles will be able to exploit some of the holes the Saints have and keep them in check and eventually pull that game out.
Not to mention, I know, obviously I took the Saints, but Drew Brees did not look great. I mean, he was great. Don't get me wrong. He played very well against the Dallas Cowboys. It was the Dallas Cowboys they played, right? Yeah, it was Sunday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys.
Those Cowboys.
TJ Spillers with. I thought it was Monday Night Football. I'm shot. That's why I stopped for a second because I was like, no, they weren't on Monday Night Football. But anyways, nice hitch and go or nice wheel route. I'm sorry to CJ Spiller to win that game. A lot of Bills fans on my Twitter, on the tweet bots, on a Twitter feed, were, myself included, saying, that's what you should have been doing with CJ Spiller 4 or 5 years ago. But or however long ago, I don't know. I give up.
Yeah, but you got to realize the quarterback missed that tackle. Like, he had him with CJ Spiller.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. But that's just, it was the perfect play.
Well, it was. I wouldn't call it the perfect play because he almost got tackled.
I call it the perfect play because it was the game-winning touchdown. Like, that's if you can find a play that's better than that, I'm not sure what game you're watching. Like, in that situation, the way that play played out, it was a perfect play. If it played out differently, it wouldn't be.
It was a good play. It won the game, much to my chagrin.
Also, don't forget that that was the 400th touchdown of Drew Brees' career. So talk about a walk-off touchdown, number 400.
Yeah, that's a good one to get your 400 on.
Now, just to run down the rest of the picks really quick. We all have Buffalo over Tennessee, Atlanta over Washington, Baltimore over Cleveland, Green Bay over St. Louis, which might be a closer game than we expect. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is tough to beat at home, but that Seattle Rams, the St. Louis Rams, as we saw, did a number to Seattle. They shut down the Cardinals. Right now, if there's any team that might be a sleeper pick in the NFC, it's the Rams. So we all pick Green Bay because, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, if there's a team that could do it, maybe the Rams are that team. We picked Kansas City over Chicago, Jacksonville over Tampa Bay, Arizona over Detroit, Denver over Oakland, New England over Dallas, the Giants over San Francisco, and San Diego over Pittsburgh. Now, Lewis, I was going to say something about you picking New England over Dallas, but I'm glad you're being logical. I appreciate it. Yeah,
listen.
I don't want you sitting here. I was going to say before you go. I didn't want you sitting here trying to tell me how Brandon Weeden was going to be a better quarterback than Tom Brady. So I do appreciate that.
No, I said a couple weeks ago that you should always go with your team, but in this particular instance, no, it's not going to happen.
You don't want to fall too far behind. Yeah, you don't want to fall too far behind in these rankings.
There's that too. So, but hey, I was pretty far behind last year, and what happened?
You came back.
I won. That's right. So,
and on a bye this week, Carolina, Miami, Minnesota, and the Jets are all off.
So we only have 2 games that we didn't agree with this year. This week.
Three.
Yeah. That's not bad.
That's about average. It's about average. Okay. I guess that's it. I mean, sports are sports. Fun. We're having fun. I have to pee. All that good stuff.
I still think it's amazing that we all picked the same exact games last week.
And we didn't do bad at all with 10-6. Not bad. That's a playoff record.
10-5?
Yeah, 10-5, whatever. I can't math.
Yeah.
I cannot math, and I'm really hungry too.
It's all good. Just go get yourself something to eat. Just go, relieve yourself.
And I'm going to go watch the Blue Jays and Rangers play before I go to work because I can't watch it at work. Well, I can watch it at work today, I think, because – oh, no, I can't. I won't be able – let me check right now. I'll give you the lowdown right now. I get – because I have MLB at Bat and I have a DirecTV login thanks to my parents, I can watch MLB Network on my phone. But
Right.
I believe because of Toronto, I can't watch the game. because I'm blacked out. Like, I know you can watch it on your phone if, like, it's Fox Sports 1 or if it's anywhere else, I believe, because it was on Fox Sports 1. If it's anywhere, if it's not Toronto, because apparently we're in the blackout zone, which is, I think sports blackouts are the dumbest thing in the history of sports.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
Sorry, I'm trying to type a password in so I can...
Well,
trying to get this. I'm trying to figure this out to see if I can be mad or not. But yeah, I just think sports blackouts are the worst, and just garbage. Just garbage, I tell you. Absolute garbage. Oh, here we go. Perfect. I get the game on my phone. Never mind.
Awesome.
Calm down the hate. Calm down the anger. I have baseball on my telephone, so I can pee. I can pee and watch the game at the same time.
I got Sirius XM. I'll be able to listen to it.
You should be able to, yeah.
While I'm driving around, I should be able to hear.
Especially because you're in Buffalo, you should be able to pick it up.
Right.
Real quick, too, one last thing.
Well, it's Sirius XM. It's satellite.
Yeah, you should get it then, yeah. I was just thinking AM radio, but you'll pick it up. I'm Ryan Wolf at BLTD, Wolf BLTD on Twitter.
I am Mr. Perez, MRLG Perez on Twitter and just about every other social media.
Keep an eye on BLTDsports.com, at BLTD Sports on Twitter, Facebook.com/BLTD Podcast. One last quick thing before we call this a podcast. First off, I'm a Fantasy Curse. Andrew Luck, Eric Ebron, Carlos Williams. I mean, I understand injuries happen, but holy crap. My team is dropping like flies. I'm starting Joe Flacco this week, so good luck with that, Joe Flacco. But last but not least, I do want to say major props to the Buffalo Sabres for getting it right. I'm not sure if you saw this last night, Lewis, but I'm sure you will appreciate it. The Buffalo Sabres goal song for the 2015-2016 season is DJ Cool's "Let Me Clear My Throat."
Really?
And it sounds magnificent in the arena. Like we watched the game last night on TV, everybody did, and the crowd ate it up. They lost their mind. And so Jack Eichel's first NHL goal, which you can only do once, obviously, is soundtracked by DJ Cool yelling, "Somebody make some noise," and then "Let Me Clear My Throat" going off.
Nice.
I'll have to link you to that. I think you'll like it a lot.
I have to check that out.
Hilarious.
I feel like having one goal song for the entire season could be annoying. I'd want to switch it up, maybe grab like two.
It's hilarious. It is hilarious. Like if you get one that really encompasses your team, like the Blackhawks have Chelsea Dagger. It's been their song for a long time.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Official word from Joe Biscaglia on Twitter, at Joe Biscaglia, says Carlos Williams is out versus the Titans. Sammy Watkins is questionable. Obviously, LaShawn McCoy is also out. Watkins was limited in practice today, but it looks like he will play.
Well,
that's good news for the Bills.
I have him on my bench right now in my fantasy football league, just because he's obviously been out and not playing well. So even if he plays this week, I may still keep him down just in case.
I'm going to go get some pizza, I think.
Some what?
Pizza, I think.
I like pizza. Pizza's delicious.
Yeah, well, I'm going to shoot over to Salvatore's, get a super slice, and go to work. But with that being said, what's up?
I said have fun.
I'm going to try, man. I'm going to try. Work is not fun, but I'm going to try. It's Friday. I'm going to go to Buffalo after work and go to the Sabres game on Saturday. I'm going to be in the crowd for the first time in a long time, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Nothing wrong with that, bro.
We should be in the press box this year too. I did get word that not only for the Amherst, but we are eligible for credentialing through the Buffalo Sabres. So hopefully we'll get a couple games in the press box this year.
That'd be awesome.
It's always a blast up there. A lot of friends up there and a lot of good people. A lot of good people for sure. But with that being said, we are better live than dead.
You're not.
And you're a damn fool if you thought I was going to forget that one this week. I've been thinking about that the whole damn podcast. We hit our marks, people. The podcast has been a good one. We'll be back next week with episode 64. We're about an hour, a little bit over an hour. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Like I said, keep an eye on BLTDsports.com for your latest breaking sports news, and check us out on Twitter as well if you haven't already. Listen to all the other podcasts on the Gear Network. Check out GearNetwork.com and at Gear Network on Twitter.
Yeah, before we leave out, I do want to mention Gear Network did just pick up a new podcast called Misguided Musings. It's my boy Jordan, who I work with. He and a couple of his friends have a little podcast they put together, and we checked it out and decided to pick it up. So welcome to the network.
Absolutely.
Misguided Musings. Look forward to checking out some more of your stuff.
Speaking of podcasts, when's your podcast happening, Lewis?
Man, you know what? I got the graphics now, so I just need to start setting stuff up. And really, it's a matter of being able to get, the microphones and the laptops. I mean, right now, without those, I can't do it. So,
we'll get working on it.
Yeah, I need to. So, because I really want to get it off the ground.
Hey, if you need any help, I'm here for it.
I appreciate it, but I've had a couple people who want to have their company sponsored on the podcast, so they've promised financial commitments and then they don't come through, so it's a matter of just setting stuff up and getting the proper equipment. That's really what it comes down to.
It's understandable. That's how this thing went. I mean, you got to pay for out of pocket. It's not fun.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so the Buffalo Sabres, let's see here. We just got one last update before we peace out. There will be no goalie move until after the Amherst game tonight, so it sounds like the Buffalo Sabres will call someone from Rochester, maybe claim a guy. But if this is a long-term thing, I'm sure if they call a guy up from Rochester, they're probably working on a deal because it doesn't sound like it's a short-term injury.
Right.
They're not. Dan Bilesma said just a minute ago they're not. They're not sure on the backup goaltender yet because, like I said, you don't want to call a guy up from Rochester if he's just going to sit around. Also, real quick update: the Rangers get an RBI single from Shin-Soo Choo, and Delano DeShields Jr. scores from second. The Rangers take a 1-0 lead in the first inning. Very bad news if the Blue Jays go down 0-2 today for sure.
Yeah, that would be bad news.
But hey, I guess this was the post show. We usually have a pre-show, but now we have a post show.
That's right.
That being said, friends, we'll see you next week. Here, Better Live Than Dead podcast, exclusively on the Gear Radio Network.
Peace.